Greetings once again, vinyl people. It's John from Wax and Relax. We're broadcasting from Florida and getting ready to get hammered by a hurricane. We are equidistant from Tampa Bay over to the Gulf of Mexico. So we're right in a little peninsula there of Pinellas County, St. Pete, Clearwater. So yeah, it's happening tonight. And right next to me is the door to the outside, and the rain often comes this way, and so there's actually sandbags down here by the door. And I know, I keep the records real close to the door. I don't have a lot of room, but these are permanently up on those 6-inch risers that some people put under the corner of their beds, those plastic kind of cone looking things. So the entire system is up 6 inches off the ground. So but if we have massive flooding or any kind of high water rise from the storm surge, we've got a lot bigger problems in our record collection. But today we're doing the Soul Tag, the 2024 Soul Tag, and this was started by DJ Vinyl Vertigo, who's a fellow Tampa Bay DJ. He's over on the other side of the bay, so hopefully he's safe and dry as well. By the time you see this, we should be okay. Because if you see this, then that means that we've made it. If you don't see it, then, well, maybe someone finds this one day and says, holy crap, that guy filmed a video just before they fucking died. So anyway, Soul Tag. 20 questions that were set up by DJ Vinyl Vertigo. And I'll try to go through these pretty quickly because there's a lot of them and there's a lot of material to cover. So, Hurricane Party. Woohoo! Name your most listened to soul album. Had a hard time with this one. It was either going to be the Yellow Greatest Hits record from Sam Cooke or this one. And this is the one I probably over the years have listened to the absolute most. And that's the Best of the Spinners. All their prime stuff from Atlantic Records in the 70s. I'm not afraid of Greatest Hits record. As much as I love studio albums, a good Greatest Hits record is all right with me, especially when they're not very expensive. And this one can usually be found out there for under $10 type of thing. Number 2, most recent soul record purchase. Well, there's a couple of them here. I recently discovered Daptone Records. Kind of that soul resurgence of 10, 15 years ago. I was over at a music festival in Tampa, and at the time I was really, really into Americana and bluegrass and things like that, and I was watching a band that I love from Portland, Oregon, and just as I walked over to the stage where they were gonna play, a guy who was on stage that looked like a cross between James Brown and Nipsey Russell, and just cool stuff, but he looked like a total throwback. The suit, the gold chains, just everything. And it didn't dawn on me to, kind of follow up to see who he was until recently. I saw someone do one of their videos. They mentioned something about Daptone Records and a couple of the artists, and I realized it was Charles Bradley. And so I got this, and I was like, holy shit. So then I got this, and now I've got a couple more on the list, but yeah, unbelievable records. So I started doing a little more research. By the way, he does a great cover of Black Sabbath Changes off of Black Sabbath Volume 4 ballad. Does it on this and actually named the record after it. And I played a soul show last Friday, and I played that, and people were throwing money in the dish and slapping me, pound fist and all that other type of thing. So that was pretty awesome to see and hear people react that way. But great stuff from Charles Bradley. While I was checking out the Daptone stuff, I found, kind of, for lack of a better term, his female counterpart, Sharon Jones. And as I was doing some Sharon Jones research, I started checking stuff out, and I was like, wow, this is amazing stuff. Turns out that there was a film that was made, which I'm sure you've all seen and heard before. So I watched it, and I laughed, I cried. I ordered the soundtrack, which the soundtrack really acts as more or less of a greatest hits double record, um, and all the photos you see here. These are all things from the film. But yeah, I'll watch it again. I'll listen to this over and over and over again. Unbelievable stuff. She had such a great voice. She was such a great woman. And the film, I don't want to spoil it for you, goes through, as she was getting ready to tour, her whole battle with cancer. And unfortunately, about a year and a half, 2 years after the film, she did pass. But great stuff. Actually, they're both deceased. But Daptone had a way of finding these people late in life and giving them a second career. And man, what great stuff! The recordings are nice, crisp. They're authentic. The singing is just unreal. Good stuff. Check it out. Okay, next up, male soul artist. I'm gonna go with Wilson Pickett. This is the Wicked Pickett, old school Atlantic label there. I'm a big fan of the movie The Commitments, and the soundtrack was great in terms of their song selection. The performances are great too. And I'm Irish, so that kind of helps. But that movie, came out in '91, and at a young age had me kind of searching out Otis Redding and Wilson Pickett and those kind of guys. And that's kind of where my love for Wilson Pickett started. So yeah, Wilson Pickett, great stuff on Atlantic. The whole '60s era of Otis and Wilson are untouchable. I started out with the greatest hits, and then you move into the studio albums and find out there's just so many good hidden gems on all of these records. So all right, let's go to the next one. A Stax release. All right. Isaac Hayes, or Chef, depending on how old you are. This is actually on Enterprise Records, which is part of Stax. Stax did a lot of that stuff. Enterprise, they named it after the whole thing from Star Trek, when he was one of their staff writers, decided he was going to start his solo career, and so they kind of, for lack of a better term, gave him his own imprint. But funny thing about that is once he started making records, most of his stuff was all cover versions, whereas all of his writing was, great stuff for Sam and Dave and things like that. Another one similar to that is, where'd they go? Da-da-da. Big Star, like the Token White group, rock group. They ended up on Ardent Records, but it was all part of that whole Memphis thing. All the same movers and shakers. I just read the Stax book, and there's a little section where they talk about Big Star. I'll get to these on another video, but they are definitely worth mentioning. But to stick with it, if you have to do a Stax release and it has to be on a Stax label, we'll go with the Stax Soul Review. This is volume 1. There is a volume 2. That's on the list. I'm eyeing one in a shop locally. It's a little higher price than I wanted to spend, so I'm going to keep looking for a little less. If not, I'll end up getting it. Okay, number 5, soul artist not from America. Later on in the thing, there's a question about Blue-Eyed Soul, so I'm assuming that we can throw in some Blue-Eyed Soul elsewhere. Artist that's very, very important to me and to my family. Definitely a soul singer by this time in his career. This is David Bowie. Young Americans and Station to Station, that would be 75 and 76. At this time, he had fallen completely in love, crazy for Philly soul, and really adapted that into his writing. As soon as he kind of ditched the whole Ziggy thing and jettisoned the Spiders from Mars, got a whole new band, and everything was geared towards kind of achieving that Philly soul sound. And great records, totally a different place than he was a year or two before that. And that really was kind of the chameleon that he was. But in that period of time, he was definitely a soul singer. Let's see. Next up, female soul artist. Um, Not only my favorite female soul singer, but my favorite female singer, perhaps of all time, is Roberta Flack. Have always loved Roberta. Um, all the pop hits during the '70s, the duets with Donny Hathaway, all stuff I absolutely loved. I love the timbre of her voice. She was a great pianist. On this record, it's almost basically a piano jazz trio record with her singing over it. This record came out in '69, and 2 years later, it went nowhere. 2 years later, Clint Eastwood asked if he could use First Time I Ever Saw Your Face, or First Time Ever I Saw Your Face, in the film Play Misty for Me. And he did, and it became monstrous. A huge, huge hit. 2 years, 3 years after this came out, she was winning awards, she was making money, this was selling by the millions. That's why there's an awful lot of these out there, because there were just so many of them that hit the market. So you can find really good, clean copies from 69, 70, 71, 72 in the dollar bin. And, I'll take it, but they're worth so much more. Next up is gospel album or single by a soul artist. Well, I mentioned Sam Cooke earlier. He was in the Soul Stirrers, and that's kind of where he started before he started doing his solo stuff. But very, very first song here, Touch the Hem of His Garment. I mean, you're going to start out the man and his music, an anthology with a gospel song. That's all I need to know about Sam, where his heart and soul was. He was a good man. He's a great singer. He is a very, very important vocalist in my book, and his work is missed dearly, for sure. Blue-eyed soul artist. In the 80s, a band called Simply Red came out of Ireland with a song called Holding Back the Years, and everyone couldn't believe how soulful Mick Hucknall's voice was. He is an awesome, awesome singer. Some people look at them as a one-hit wonder, which is a shame, because if you think that, that is absolutely a shame. They've had an entire career of great music, and he just keeps putting out great things. 1998, 2003, all fantastic records, wonderful stuff. Just I can't say enough about Simply Red. A couple of the records from the 90s, I'm still waiting for them to reissue, because they just never came out on LP. One's from like 99. It just wasn't happening. So we're waiting for it. Blue-Eyed Soul, don't sleep on the Blues Brothers. I know that most people think of this as kind of a comedy thing. If you listen to this record is made out of a place of love. This is not made out of a place of comedy. The band that they got were all Stax Volt veterans, and those guys absolutely loved that music, and they did the music justice. So don't sleep on the Blues Brothers. Yeah, they had funny movies and whatnot, but those records are authentic and genuine. Next up, number 9, soul artists that more people should be aware of. I picked out 2 of them. They're 2 that I have loved for an awful long time, and they never get mentioned in the same breath as some of the other acts that you hear. In the world of Philly soul, you hear about the OJs, and you hear about Teddy Pendergrass, the Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, and all the other stuff, the Barry Whites of the world and whatnot. You don't hear a lot about the Intruders, but the Intruders were awesome. They were the kind of the third tier Philly soul group, but so many great things. And this is actually pretty cool. A cool series that Philly International did. All the records kind of look like this, and they really collect one LP's worth of the best stuff. So I think this was put together in like 2017 or something like that. But Cowboys to Girls is on here. Loves Like a Baseball Game. When We Get Married. I'll Always Love My Mama. I always sang that to my mom. We just buried her a couple of weeks ago, so kind of wanted to bring that involved here. Yeah, just so many cool things. And I couldn't make up my mind if I wanted to talk just about The Intruders or the other one. I'm a sucker for 70s AM radio hits, and this was, as far as I'm concerned, they were a great soul group that was on 70s AM radio. They only had the 2 or 3 hits, but other than that, no one ever talks about Cornelius Brothers and Sister Rose. I just freaking love those songs. Those songs are a food group to me. They are comfort food. Yeah, so more people need to acknowledge the greatness of Cornelius Brothers and Sister Rose. All right. Couple of interesting questions coming up here. Soul artist featured on a rock album. I've seen a lot of the same records show up for this. I've seen a lot of people sort of kind of bend it and twist it and try to tweak things in there, but I've never seen anyone pull this record. Tears for Fears, Sowing the Seeds of Love, and Oleta Adams is all over this. Does a great job. Just such cool stuff on this record. So varied, so many different styles, but she just does a cracking job on this. Oleta Adams on Tears for Fears, Sowing the Seeds of Love from '89. All right, next up, Show a Motown release. All right. Well, that got a bunch of Motown stuff coming up, so you'll see the labels on that. But Tamla and Gordy and all those other labels, they were all part of Motown as well. So I'm going to do a Tamla record. My favorite girl group from the Motown stable, the Marvelettes. Yes, indeed. Yeah, Hunter Gets Captured by the Game, Destination Anywhere are some of my favorite tunes of all time. So I've got a couple more Marvelettes, but just figured I'd show this one. They were the first successful girl group from the stable of Motown artists. And if you don't believe me, just to show you, this does say the Motown Sound, so it is a Motown record. They were the first successful ones out of Hitsville, USA. Problem was they couldn't keep a steady lineup. They started out as a quintet and then went down to a quartet and then a trio, and they weren't really identifiable. There was no leader, there was no Martha Reeves, there was no Diana Ross. Well, once the Marvelettes hits started to kind of slow down a little bit, that's when the Supremes started to happen, and then from there Marvelettes just kind of took a back seat and were left kind of in the dust. Unfortunately, there's a couple of acts like that in Motown, and we'll talk about one of those coming up a little bit. Next up, a soul artist deserving of a box set. Another one that didn't quite get the benefit of the records and the push. They were kind of the 4th or 5th girl group on the roster, is the Velvelettes. I don't have anything by them because there's no record. They had a bunch of singles, even popular enough that Bananarama covered one of them. Great singles during the 60s. They started working on an album, and it was abandoned before it was released. So I'd love to hear that. You could take that and couple it with all the singles, the B-sides, and they did kind of a record in the early 70s that wasn't even on Motown, but you could take all that and do a double or triple record out of that and just do some sort of box set just to acknowledge who the Velvelettes were. They were really great, and it's too bad that things went the way they did. Number 13, a soul act I've seen in concert. It's in your town probably once every year, if not once every other year, for a string of many years. You probably had the Temps and the Tops come through. Temptations and Four Tops seem to tour just about every year. I started seeing them back in the 90s. Um, sorry, I just hit my leg on a table. I'd seen them a couple times. And funny thing is, one night, my wife and I were at an event where we were staying in a hotel for a weekend because everything was happening Friday night, Saturday night, and then the big gathering breakfast on Sunday. Well, the Temps and the Tops were in town that night. It wasn't one of the shows that we went to. Stayed at the same hotel, and we actually ate breakfast at the next table from the Temptations. So it was pretty cool. It didn't bother him though. Okay, a couple of them here that are all sort of related. A jazz record by a soul artist. I don't know if this is cheating or not. Ramsey Lewis, Sun Goddess. The players on this record are a whole bunch of people from Earth, Wind, and Fire. Especially when you take the title track, Sun Goddess. You hear those unmistakable Earth, Wind, and Fire vocals. So yeah, jazz record with soul artist. I'm going with that. Sun Goddess with Earth, Wind, and Fire. Speaking of Earth, Wind, and Fire, number 15, a soul artist in a group and or solo, or no, a group and solo. Earth, Wind, and Fire. That's the Way of the World. Great record. This was little gatefold action. This was this kicked off a lot of really good years from them, where things just got bigger and better. They became, kind of put on a show like the caliber of maybe like Kiss. But they started out just, regular, group of dudes. Shining Star, That's the Way of the World, Reasons, so many good things going on in that record, and their career just blew up from there. Come around 1984, and from Earth, Wind, and Fire, you got a solo album from Philip Bailey, Chinese Wall, great record, his unmistakable falsetto, and a big hit single with Phil Collins on this. Very funny video of them trying to work out filming the video together. So cool stuff. It was one of those, kind of like the Ebony and Ivory and Say and all those type of things where you had just those nice collaborations. That one that Jackson Browne did with Clarence Clemens. Those were kind of very popular in the early 80s. Let's see. Number 16, favorite soul song. Well, for a long time, it was off of this record, Stylistics. People Make the World Go Round. Undoubtedly, my favorite soul song ever. And then one day, I just realized how freaking awesome Rainy Night in Georgia by Brook Benton is. And I can't make up my mind between the two. I think that People Make the World Go Round is my favorite song. I think Rainy Night in Georgia is my favorite performance or favorite recording of a soul song. But yeah, just that one, 2 or 3 whiskeys, that has me crying all over my laptop. Reggae soul artist. I think a lot of people had a difficult time with this. Some people were just kind of showing a reggae artist, which is fine. I kind of interpreted this as a soulful reggae artist. Because some of the dancehall guys aren't very soulful, and some of the roots guys are, they have serviceable vocals, but not quite so soulful. I went with roots guys that had super soulful voice. So it could have been Dennis Brown, could have been Jimmy Cliff. But for my money, the most soulful reggae singer was Bunny Ruggs from Third World. Actually, this is the only Third World I have at the moment. But 96 Degrees in the Shade is coming up soon. That was actually my oldest daughter. That was the lullaby I sang to her every night. But yeah, definitely check out some Third World if you're into roots reggae, and if you haven't check them out. You've heard some of their songs on a lot of 80s hip hop samples. Um, and DJ Vinyl Vertigo, if you're listening, some of the guys from Third World now live in Tampa. So I'm running into them at the airport a couple times. Well, I say a couple times. They were actually on the same flight as us. We were going to Philly. They were going to Atlantic City to play. We were going up for a wedding. And then afterwards, we go back to the airport. They come back to the airport. We went up and back on the same flight, so it was kind of funny. Okay, number 18, live soul recording. I don't have Donny Hathaway live, but that is one that I love, and that is on the list. I just can't find a reasonable priced copy of it locally. I know there's some reissues out there somewhere, but just got to locate them. So going through a whole Otis Redding thing lately. And so I started listening to an awful lot of Otis live records. And there are a ton of Otis Redding live records. And the deeper that you do the research, you find out that there's only 3 sources that those come from, including that one I showed earlier of the Stax Soul review. One of them is this trip to Europe that they made and did the Stax Soul review. This is from Otis's set. This is Otis live in Europe. Another recording that a lot of those live tracks come from is his nights at the Whiskey A Go-Go. And there was only one time that they went out there and did this. And then last but not least, this is a pretty cool record that I found. This was at Monterey. And he opened up with Sam Cooke's Shake and played for all those hippies, and they were just blown away. This is actually an interesting record in that it's a split. Otis Redding on one side and Jimi Hendrix on the other side. And, you know, as great as Jimmy was, his performance was more visual with the lighting the guitar on fire and so on and so forth. The music's okay. The Otis Redding set just absolutely smoked. And it's interesting because, you know, Otis was on Atco and Stax at the time, and this came out on Reprise because, well, that was where Jimmy was from. And but this is pretty cool. Monterey Pop, definitely worth checking out. But yeah, all those live Otis Redding records, they're all just culled from those 3 recordings. Next, Soul Compilation. This is from 1968. This is called This Is Soul, and it's all the Atlantic stuff. You've got, you know, Aretha, you've got Wilson Pickett, Joe Tex, Arthur Conley, which I just listened to that Arthur Conley record today. I heard the whole thing. Man, he was a perfect cross between Otis and Sam Cooke. What a, you know, underrated record. That one's got to get some more love too. The Arthur Conley Sweet Soul music. Esther Phillips, The Capitals with Cool Jerk, Percy Sledge, Solomon Burke, Ray Charles, Don Covey, Benny King, The Drifters. Just really, really a great listen. And my theory on various artist records or compilations is that, you know, it's 45 minutes. It should be like a great 45 minutes out of a great radio show, and this plays just like that. There was a 1985 CD that Atlantic put out called I think it was Sweet Soul Music, and I used to use that DJing all the time. I mean, every track on it was played at almost every gig, and they don't have it on LP. It was one of those WIA special products type of things. So, you know, in '85 it was on cassette, and then it eventually became CD, but never made it to record. I think it did in Europe, but there was nothing available stateside with that. But yeah, that was one I used to play the hell out of. And then the last question, a VC channel. In the vinyl community, there's a couple of them that I watch and I subscribe to. Actually, there's a bunch of them that I do now. But the one that really got me excited about doing this particular tag, it was Craig Danger, the vinyl record player. I watch probably more of his videos than I have of anyone else's in terms of, you know, I've watched, I think, every one of his, and I don't think there's anyone else I've watched every one of their videos. His delivery, his energy, his enthusiasm, and his passion for those soul records, it's just really unmatched. I'm learning a lot about some of the deeper soul albums. The Willie Hutch collection, and he's big into Jerry Butler and things like that. But yeah, Craig's awesome. I've commented on a couple of his videos, and he has responded. But hopefully, Craig, you get to see this and know that you're one of the channels that has inspired me to start this one. And actually, the Soul Tag was, I saw yours before I saw anyone else's, which is why I'm doing this one now. But that's it, 2024 Soul Tag. I've been having this one in the hopper for a while. I just hadn't had an opportunity to take the time to get it on onto video. So hopefully that worked out well, and you stayed with me this long. The whole routine: like, subscribe, click, rub it into your belly, whatever you do. But yeah, tell your friends, and we do have the page. I'm just shaking everything. We have the page on Facebook if you want to join up. Wax and Relax Vinyl Listening Room. Once again, I'm John. We'll see you on the B-side.